I went to my younger sister Hannah's graduation dinner at one of the most luxurious restaurants in the city, expecting to find a seat at the table, a place that acknowledged my presence, that recognized me as part of the family. But there wasn't a single chair reserved for me. My mother looked at me with cold indifference and said, "Tonight is for people with college degrees only." When the waiter arrived carrying the exorbitant bill of $2,800, he came directly to me and said in a low voice, "Your whole family said you'll pay." I stood there and smiled, a small, calculated smile, the kind that comes just before striking a match, and then spoke a single sentence that made the entire table fall silent. I had known something was wrong the moment I saw the waiter avoid everyone's eyes and approach me holding the massive black ledger as if it weighed heavier than the entire restaurant. Silence hung over my family. Forks froze midair, and Hannah's graduation ribbon gleamed under the sparkling chandeliers. I felt my mother's gaze pierce my face, sharp and cold. The waiter repeated in a low voice, "Your family said you'll pay." In that moment, all the buried contempt inside me, all the disguised disdain hidden behind manners, all the silent wounds that had gone unhealed for years, rose like smoke. Yet I smiled. They didn't know that this moment wasn't a disaster, it was an ending, one I had been preparing for months. I had once worshipped them. It seems naive now, but I believed that belonging was something one could earn by working hard, staying silent, and making oneself small enough. My mother would pat my head when I was little and say, "You're a reliable daughter." I hadn't realized then that the true meaning was a daughter to exploit. Hannah looked at me with admiration and would sneak into my room to tell me about her dreams of leaving our small town. We were a team. But teams don't last when someone decides they deserve more. Then the small signs began to appear. Dinners I wasn't invited to, family photos I didn't know existed, gifts I contributed to that never mentioned my name. Things got worse. My mother asked me for money every week. Hannah borrowed my car and returned it with an empty gas tank. They always took, never gave back. But the true betrayal happened when I overheard them talking about me one day, unaware that I was home. My mother said dismissively, "You should thank God we even invited her to dinner." Hannah chuckled slightly and added, "What, she didn't even get into college." My father ended the conversation saying, "She'll always pay." They weren't a family, they were a committee, and I wasn't a member, I was a resource, a wallet, something to be used. That's when I made my decision. Not out of anger, not out of sorrow, but out of liberation. I didn't confront them, didn't scream, didn't cry. I just watched and learned. Then I began my plan to break free. I stopped giving them money, documented everything they took from me, separated my bank accounts, refused all invitations, except one, the graduation dinner, my last chance to play the obedient daughter. When I arrived, the table was full, every seat accounted for, except mine. I looked at my mother, who said sarcastically while brushing a narrow space between two chairs, "You didn't go to college, you can't sit here." I felt the old sting, then it vanished. I calmly said, "I'll stand." She thought she had won. She didn't know that I had been victorious for months. When the bill arrived and the waiter said, "Your family said you'll pay," a calm settled over me. Perfect. I pushed the chair back with a satisfying squeak and said, "This is not my family, and this is not my bill." Confusion came first, then panic, then anger. My mother shouted, "You can't." I said, putting on my coat, "I've done what was necessary, and check the bank accounts, loans, and cards. See what's left for you." Their eyes widened. They realized I owed them nothing anymore. I left the restaurant, the cold air hitting my face like a baptism. I didn't look back. For the first time in my life, I walked away from the table whole, not broken. One day, my mother said sarcastically, "You're smart, but not that smart. Colleges don't give full scholarships for free. Be realistic. The real meaning of her words was be useful, not ambitious. 1 month later, Hannah needed braces. We couldn't afford them, but my mother sat in front of the orthodontist, nodding with concern, then held Hannah's hand and said, "We'll fix it, don't worry." On the way back, I caught my reflection in the rearview mirror, and she said, "You'll help out a bit in the restaurant, at least for now. I don't want Hannah embarrassed by her smile, right?" I was 16. I agreed. I worked extra shifts until my feet ached, feeling the pulse in the soles of my feet. When tips were good, I gave them to my mother. When they were small, she extended her hand anyway. The world didn't improve, only I became easier to use, the cushion that absorbed their pain. College became a ghost, a distant dream, a question left unanswered. I didn't dare look at it directly. I watched others my age attend universities and post acceptance letters on social media, celebrating dinners without anyone being forced to pay as if by court order. I began telling people I wasn't studying at all because it was easier to tell the truth. I had been the resource they didn't want to lose. Hannah eventually went to college, starting at a community college before transferring to a state university 2 hours away. They found a way for her, a plan to pay off loans, expenses charged to the credit card in my and my mother's names for emergencies. I had never been the one to decide what qualified as an emergency. When I was 22, I sat in a bank office, the smell of coffee and ink filling the air. The clerk, Pamela, according to her small chart, carried a smiling sticker, pressed a few keys, then frowned. She said, "You're already listed as a co-signer on a car loan. The system won't approve another loan without a large down payment." I blinked slowly and said, "I didn't get a car loan. I have an old Corolla I bought with cash." She turned the screen toward me and said apologetically, "It's a Ford Explorer from 3 years ago. Co-signers Lawrence Sandra and Lawrence Harper." My heart sank. I felt dizzy. That night, I confronted my mother in the kitchen. The TV was on in the living room, my father sitting in his rocking chair as if the volume determined his breathing rate. I said to her directly, "You put my name on a car loan." She didn't flinch. "We needed another guarantor and you were the best, reliable, responsible." I said, "But I didn't sign anything." She shrugged and added mockingly, "Be grateful, we are family." Her words slapped me. "You're not in college, you work in a restaurant, you must be grateful." Something stirred within me, not breaking, but reclaiming myself, a bone returning to its place after years of deviation. I said, "This is the last time." I left the house into the cold night and promised myself, I will untangle every thread they tied me with, no matter how long it takes. Years passed. Calls, documents, stubbornness I didn't know I possessed. I built a life away from their needs. A second job, promotions, an office, financial stability like something I had never known before, self-ownership. Yet my family saw only money. Power went out, the washer broke, Hannah needed rent. I said yes, then yes with conditions, then no. The accusations began. "You've changed. You are not our daughter." Then I met Maya, a new friend, who said, "This is financial abuse, not family sacrifice." Months of planning later, Hannah's graduation day arrived, the day my family expected me to pay the bill as usual. When the waiter said, "Your family said you'll pay," I stood, smiled, and said, "This is not my family, and this is not my bill." Weeks passed. I slept without fear of desperate financial messages, sitting at my small table, enjoying coffee in peace. I saw my mother's post on Facebook, the perfect portrayal of victimhood. I felt the usual burn in my stomach, then closed the phone. I didn't respond, I didn't explain. That night, Maya called me. "Did you see the post?" I said, "Yes, I think I'm fine." Hannah appeared suddenly under the umbrella and said, "I paid." My eyes lit up. I nodded. That was the truth they never told me. the truth that made everything I endured worthwhile. Now, as I reclaimed my life, I discovered the final shock that changed everything. While reviewing old documents in a safe at the office, I found an official paper proving I was not born to this family, that I had been adopted. They were not my biological parents. All the exclusion, all the neglect and mistreatment was explained in a new way. It wasn't just exploitation, it was control over a girl who had never been given a chance to know the truth, to know her roots. The truth became another kind of freedom, bitter and sweet. Everything I had endured, every moment of patience, every struggle, became clearer and stronger. I was no longer the daughter of a family that never wanted me. I had become a daughter to myself, guardian of my own future, free from every chain of the past.